This is Chapter 2. Asket influences Meier's preparation. Upon establishing telepathic contact with Meier, Asket took over his education and preparation where Svath had left off. It was she who led him through a series of adventures designed to toughen him for the adversity to come. It was she who led him through Africa and the experiences in the French Foreign Legion, the desert caravans, the slavers, revolutionaries, and bootleggers, into the hands of the pirates of the Arabian Sea and across the Indian Ocean as a sailor with the freighters to the subcontinent of India. It was Asket who, by subtle influence, guided Meier through most of the religions of Europe, Africa, and Asia, joining them one by one in turn in his own search for a belief system acceptable to him. Unknown to Meier consciously then was Asket's subsequent statements to him, also later confirmed by Semjase in the Pleiadian contacts, that he was once an IHWH, a Pleiadian expedition to Earth, with one of the several earlier occupations of this planet by ancestors of the Pleiadians. He, at that earlier time, enjoyed his superior status and the obedience of and exploitation of the primitive Earth humans. His activities at that earlier time brought him subsequently into Earth incarnation as one of the terrestrial primitives experiencing the oppressed side of the exploitation. But in his soul he knew the other side as well, even in those ancient days, and he inspired rebellion against the oppressors, and a movement toward awareness of the creation as the underlying source of being for all, within which even the IHWH had their limits. He became a leader of this silent rebellion, and his name then is recognized today as one of the prophets of the Old Testament. He incarnated again later as another to continue the work, and even again after that more than once for the same purpose, including his present mission now, an Earthman. Wow. He was often guided in his activities over the centuries by those seeking to help the Pleiadians correct their mistakes, which in present time took the form of the Dal extra-dimensionals and Asket in person. This is why in Asket's preparation program for this mission, he was led through all the world's great religions, one after another, to learn them thoroughly, and also another reason why he was led away from formal education at a young age to reduce the contamination of concepts by the orthodox earth level of knowledge and his beliefs. He was severely tested physically and mentally to toughen him for the trials of this mission. He actually experienced most of the principal earth religions today from the inside, all of which, according to his information, are descended from the less than benevolent Pleiadian extraterrestrials of the ancient past. This is one reason for Meier's harsh challenges to the fundamentalist beliefs, much of which we have edited out of our version of the Pleiadian contact notes, but which may be read in their original German language by those so interested. We are pretty sure that this information will not be well received because the entrenched orthodox beliefs are still here, though now being exploited by Earthmen for their own gain. Knowing this and revealing it has become a great danger to our contactee and many of those associated with him. Because of these and previous contacts with the Dal extra-dimensionals and his awakened awareness, Edward Meier was not entirely surprised when the contacts with Semjase and her team reformed IHWHs began, although it came earlier than expected. This is also another reason, and the real one, why these contacts could not be expanded to include just any other Earth humans or be transferred to somebody else. There are, however, others like Edward Meier who are here doing similar things for similar reasons, but their missions are equally impossible to transfer to another. Edward Meier has been given adequate proof of the validity of all these things, but he is not permitted to use it to persuade any other human being against his own will. Meier's primary instrument of validity is the collection of certain photographs of the extraterrestrial spacecraft which will never be duplicated. We may add here that there are photographs which have also been prepared as an escape, if and when that should become necessary. We are not permitted to point them out, as it violates the freedom of choice rule within the free will aspects of each individual. It is for this same reason that all positive and indisputable proof has been withheld by the extraterrestrials themselves, and when anything that might become provable came into the hands of Meier, it was taken by the Pleiadians. Thus you are all entirely free to choose without the coercive influence of positive evidence. That was also the reason behind our instructions from the Pleaidians not to try to rebut any kinds of charges made against the case by antagonists. They are entitled to their preferred judgments in their own free will. This may not be for them, and that's okay. Meier also has freedom of choice in how he treats this whole thing. He is not bound in any way, and may get out at any time by an act of will. But they warn if he does, it is forever, a step that he hesitates to take, because so much of his past is bound up in this. They would not let him back in? When as a child Meier watched the high traveling stars zigzag and stop in the sky and turn colors, he knew what they were, but he didn't know consciously. I desperately want to know the strange objects, the high-flying spaceships from somewhere, but this remained a riddle. From where did I know them? It was becoming evident that I really had seen these objects already many times before, somewhere on a huge aerodrome, where hundreds of such machines of many different types, forms, and sizes were standing. But I just couldn't remember where this had been. And what are the connections? He wrote in his first notes. Have I perhaps been located in an earlier life on another planet? And have I lived a special life there? Have I seen these ships there and brought the memory into my present life? Has something remained in my spirit as memory, which I have called up in my present existence? Do I feel very strongly that I am a stranger in this world called Earth? I am a stranger here, although I know the good Earth well, for many times I pass landscapes or scenes where I suddenly know what lies over the hill, what the scene looks like, and what age-old ruins exist there. I often can tell with certainty what the land behind the next mountain looks like, or how the shore of the sea runs, without having ever been there in this lifetime. With many people this recognition also occurs, and I know them and their most secret thoughts, without ever having seen them before in this life. I have also learned to see into the future, and to recognize the danger of describing matters seen there, which then later come to pass. So I have learned to keep silent about this, like I keep many other matters. I call myself a creature of the creation, a creation of the creation, as this represents as well every other form of life. I do also recognize myself as a wanderer through space and time, and true to word, I am a wanderer through world space, time, and also lifetimes. This I know with a secure feeling. I know that I am like that, everywhere only a stranger, as is a traveler, which after the performance of a certain mission moves on and does his duty in the next place. In this neither space nor time, nor the concerned world and a particular life dominate, because I travel through them as a missionary, and only to complete the mission is of importance to me and of great meaning. After 2 years of simple observations, on my 7th birthday on the 3rd of February 1944, I suddenly heard a soft voice sounding inside my consciousness, ordering me to learn very intently and to collect the knowledge to be transmitted in this fashion. I did not completely trust this inner voice, fearing it the voice of delusion, but it always tried to calm me. I went to the priest who listened to my whole story when I told him all. That wise man smiled and revealed that I need not fear, because he was well informed on all these matters. Then he educated me thoroughly in certain matters, for this was to demand that I keep strict silence, because these things were not recognized as a part of his profession, for he himself still had a mission to work here as a priest, to slowly inform the people of the truth of their religion, which was a difficult undertaking, because the people in my native village were especially God-fearing and superstitious. Priest Zimmermann explained to me that this voice was a communications means that could be used over unlimited distances and knew no obstacles. The explanations of Priest Zimmermann really helped me, although he delivered a blow when he said that my life was going to be very hard, rich in privation, and full of needs, which has come true up to now. With his explanations I conquered my worries and troubled myself to expand the at first one-sided contacts. I put questions and began to receive answers, and so recognized Priest Zimmermann having been correct in his observations. These telepathic contacts were with a creature who now called himself Svath, who initiated me into vast knowledge. Now I became isolated from my environment. I even allowed more intrigues to come upon me, and I became the stooge for every evil that happened in our village. But I did not care about that. I only smiled silently within myself when they offered lies against me, and I had to suffer for them. I often was given such blows that I could neither sit nor stand. I was declared uneducatable and was placed in different asylums with no success because, in fact, nobody wanted to put up with a strange boy like me, or I simply felt the call of freedom and escaped. I even made life-threatening escapes from secure asylums and for weeks strolled in the mountains and forests, living on wild fruit, berries, birds' eggs, grasses, and roots. My bed was the naked ground and my roof the firmament, whether it snowed or rained. This gave me unconquerable inner strength. When anywhere a robbery or a theft happened, the police automatically seized me and accused me of the deeds I had never committed. I knew what to expect and kept silence, allowing them to accomplish their unjustified reproaches. I even signed police reports accusing me of offenses I had not done. The consequence was that they sent me to a psychiatrist for mental evaluation because I had mentioned spiritual matters to the police and had told someone else about human beings on other stars. Why, I do not know. I only know that I had to do so, whether I wanted to or not. In a special department of the psychiatric clinic at Rheinau, I was placed in maximum security with everything locked and secured. Even the windows were bulletproof glass with steel grates on the outside. After 1 month, I made a special key out of a piece of wood and a woolen carpet by which I opened a window in a toilet on the 2nd floor. Outside, the walls were flat as glass, and 7 meters below was the concrete yard. I simply could stay no longer, and I jumped into the depths, severely injuring my right foot, which I was sure I had now broken. Though in pain, which nearly drove me crazy, I pulled myself over the yard and then climbed over a high fence, crossed a big field, and hid in a forest 2 kilometers away. There I heard the search groups and the barking dogs. I hurried through the forest and suddenly fell down a slope. Ahead of me I heard water gurgling and crept toward it. The Rhine River. I jumped into the water and swam down the frigid river because who would look for me in water at 2300, which is 11 p.m., at night in the cold of November? I swam several kilometers downstream and then with great difficulty climbed out on land. I nourished myself on wild plants and limped for days toward the French border, always through fields and forests to avoid capture. In France, I reported myself into the Foreign Legion and also got help and medical treatment for my foot, which was swelled and dark blue. It was badly sprained, and I had contusions and fissures in the bones. So I finally landed in Algeria, and I learned a new discipline and many other things. After some time, I tired of this and decided to leave. Secretly, I counseled with others, and also with an old lieutenant of the Legion, who as a point of interest was well-mannered and kind to me. He wanted to dissuade me from this plan and said that the escape could only succeed for extraordinarily tough legionnaires, and this meant a grown man. And among the legionnaires themselves the talk was that anyone escaping who succeeded in flight would be a hero, and that alone would take a real man, because such a person would literally go through 7 hells. At first I let myself be frightened by that, and told everyone that such circumstances would keep me from trying to escape. But then I prepared myself secretly for it, and one night disappeared. More than 2.5 months I was on the way, often nearer death than life, and not only experienced 7 hells, but many more besides. However, I was free of the Legion. Altogether, I spent 4.5 years in prisons and asylums before I disappeared for 12 years into foreign countries. The time in prisons and asylums was not useless, I must confess, because I learned more of spiritual matters during this time than I ever would have in my homeland with complete freedom. So I see that nothing was in vain, for I only gathered experiences for myself. And now the new voice, which had taken over after Svath, said that she could be called Asket and would be my new companion. Through her, over the years, I learned many things and gained phenomenal knowledge. And by her, I was guided for the first time out into the world, the distant world, which I later would travel for many long years to explore many matters, and to inquire into many things. But there should first pass some years until the time would come for this. Until 1956 I was educated by Asket, especially in spiritual lessons. This was completely apart from the religions known to me, in which I had involved myself over the years, even to secretly visiting special schools to become a priest. In this respect, Asket ordered me to dedicate myself besides the Christian religions to all the other different religions as well, and to explore them for the sake of study. So I first joined the different sects, one after another, changed from Protestantism to Catholicism, became a Buddhist, a Hindu, Jew, Muslim, etc., which took very many years and found its end in June 1969. Until this time, besides the study of religions, to which I often belonged in order to explore them to their deepest depths and the uninterrupted lessons, there were many other matters. I, of course, had to care for my livelihood, and had thus to work according to the opportunities available. In the 12 long years of traveling, I exercised many different professions, including medicine man, veterinarian, street planner, smuggler, an honorable profession in West Pakistan, where goods are carried through the Himalayas from Russia to China, as ship's painter, blasting leader, teacher of the German language, and a state assignment when on the 3rd of August 1965 in Iskenderi, Turkey, I was involved in a bus accident in which I lost my left arm. On the 25th of December 1965, I met my wife in Greece, to whom I became engaged on the 25th of January 1966. Then, not accepted by her parents, for which we eloped on the 25th of February 1966 and married on the 25th of March 1966 in Corinthos after many troubles with the police and searching actions and threats by her family, etc. My personal acquaintance with Asket had begun 10 years earlier on 3rd of February 1956. Many things have happened since that date, possibly because this day is my birthday, and things have often been transmitted to me then. Do you know who else was born on February 3rd? I'm not going to tell you. And things have often been transmitted to me then, especially with Svath. So it was in the early morning hours of that date, the 3rd of February 1965, around 2 o'clock in the morning, when I was in my homeland in Switzerland, near Hinwil, when I was asked by Asket's voice to proceed to a certain location where then I would be sent for. Many questions occupied me as I proceeded, and I suddenly found myself at the place designated before I was conscious of my progress. All had gone very quickly, as almost before I arrived. A bright light shot down from the sky and touched down near me. Following a gentle urge, I went toward it, and was carried through an opening, like with the pear-like ship of Svath. Then the opening closed itself, and very astonishing events began to take place. All this dialogue was written down with the help of Asket. She was able, with the help of some apparatus, to repeat long-ago conversations, word for word, quite accurately. Thus, in recording these reports, I am able to repeat correctly every word and sentence spoken. The marvelous equipment used by Asket is able to not only recover every word, but also thought impulses behind those words as well. UFO Contact from the Pleiades by Wendell Stevens. This is Chapter 2. Asket influences Meier's preparation. Upon establishing telepathic contact with Meier, Asket took over his education and preparation where Svath had left off. It was she who led him through a series of adventures designed to toughen him for the adversity to come. It was she who led him through Africa and the experiences in the French Foreign Legion, the desert caravans, the slavers, revolutionaries, and bootleggers, into the hands of the pirates of the Arabian Sea and across the Indian Ocean as a sailor with the freighters to the subcontinent of India. It was Asket who, by subtle influence, guided Meier through most of the religions of Europe, Africa, and Asia, joining them one by one in turn in his own search for a belief system acceptable to him. Unknown to Meier consciously then was Asket's subsequent statements to him, also later confirmed by Semyasi in the Pleaidian contacts, that he was once an IHWH, a Pleiadian expedition to Earth, with one of the several earlier occupations of this planet by ancestors of the Pleiadians. He, at that earlier time, enjoyed his superior status and the obedience of and exploitation of the primitive Earth humans. His activities at that earlier time brought him subsequently into Earth incarnation as one of the terrestrial primitives experiencing the oppressed side of the exploitation. But in his soul he knew the other side as well, even in those ancient days, and he inspired rebellion against the oppressors, and a movement toward awareness of the creation as the underlying source of being for all, within which even the IHWH had their limits. He became a leader of this silent rebellion, and his name then is recognized today as one of the prophets of the Old Testament. He incarnated again later as another to continue the work, and even again after that more than once for the same purpose, including his present mission now, an Earthman. Wow. He was often guided in his activities over the centuries by those seeking to help the Pleiadians correct their mistakes, which in present time took the form of the Dal extra-dimensionals and Asket in person. This is why in Asket's preparation program for this mission, he was led through all the world's great religions, one after another, to learn them thoroughly, and also another reason why he was led away from formal education at a young age to reduce the contamination of concepts by the orthodox earth level of knowledge.